Charly Boy, and we're going to talk about Michael Jai White, okay, and his wife. They were on the Hardly Initiated the other day. Charly Boy posted this video shortly before I went live, and I thought I would share some kind of insights with you from this as well. They have some kind of marriage advice or advices, I don't know, but let's look at it. Let's see what Charly Boy is talking about. Let's see. Okay, I will not play the music. I don't have the right to that music. But let me just read what he said on this caption to you, right? Charly Boy is, for lack of a better word, a weirdo, a 75-year-old weirdo. But there's so much you can learn from Charly Boy, okay? Charly Boy, when it comes to money, please don't, there are people that have certain things to say about him when it comes to doing money business and reputation. Go and ask the Adeyanju. That's not what I'm talking about. But when it comes to lasting relationship, understanding how relationship can actually thrive, some of the most weirdos in the world actually have the secret down pack. I know it's kind of weird. That idea I just gave you is kind of weird. Let me tell you something. The last segment I just finished, I talked about letting go. It's one of the hardest things for you to do. Why? Because you have certain ideologies in your head. You're stuck with it. It's not working for you, but you're kind of stuck with it. Like the way I was raised, where I'm from, in my religion. You're doing all this kind of stuff. But the reality is that your relationships are funky. They're not working. And there's correlation between your ideologies and why your relationships are not working. And you're going to see that as a theme across the board on this particular live stream. Okay. All right, so let me read that caption that Charly Boy has to say there. It says, what does one do when your marriage starts to feel too hard? I like the fact that he used the word feel. It's a feeling. Yes, you can end up in a funky place in a marriage where it's just starting to feel too hard. At that point, that's when most divorcees will say it just wasn't working. Well, it won't work if you don't work. But potato, context matters, semantics. So let me break down what we're saying, what I'm trying to extract out of it, right? When you start to feel you and your partner are growing apart, right? Longevity in marriage is never about not failing, getting tired, wanting to give up. It is always about getting back up. Some people call that is forgiveness. Some people take that with it to the next level. They try to manipulate you with forgiveness. I do agree that there's a lot of forgiveness, but it doesn't necessarily have to feel like forgiveness, because forgiveness is something that happens at the point where you feel like there's such a toxic level of betrayal, and usually people are preaching to you to forgive something that you really feel disgusted by. So I don't like to bring in the word forgiveness prematurely, because you're suggesting that something that really shouldn't be forgiven should be forgiven. That somebody has committed something and you should they should get away with it, and you're supposed to act like Jesus or God in that moment. And that's often not realistic and not sustainable. If you forgive small, eventually the resentment will come back. You're just, So, but again, keep in mind semantics. It's all semantics. I just want you to think about this, right? He said, let's make a habit of finding the good in people. I like that better than, that's for you to still have space and room in you to find the good in people. That means you're very aware of this side of the argument, that it's just that you are feeling you and your partner are growing apart. It's just a feeling at this point. Okay, so it's not really that they did something crazy and you're supposed to pretend like it didn't happen. Like, for example, they had a baby on you, or which people, at that point, then we need to bring in forgiveness if in your heart you're able to, right? Because that's something crazy to happen to anybody, right? But majority of the troubles you're going through inside of marriage and long-term relationship are feelings. You're feeling some type of way. But they can pile up, become a big, thick resentment that, we might start to talk about forgiveness at that point in time. Anyway, he says, let's make a big habit of finding the good in people, not their flaws. God help us all. Easy. All right. Just to encourage those of us going through turbulence in our marriage. I thought this was fantastic. I always love to hear from him because he's been married for 45 years or something like that to the same woman. And he's married across the ponds. I think the wife is African American, something like that. I'm not sure. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. Okay. That's to tell you that it really doesn't matter. But if you have very strong ideologies, you tend to struggle in marriage. Okay. There's also very strong ideology that can come in the form of religion. But there are also, for example, in the Christian world, there are people that understand the nuances and they go through teachings with the right pastor and they can understand the nuances. And, we're having some new breed of pastors that really understand that coming up these days. There's still very few compared to the rest of them, but I do see some good examples are coming out. All right, so now with that being said, let me bring up Michael Jai White, who is an American actor. Let's see here. Let me bring up that video. What's going on here? Video file. Okay. All right, and let's hear what he has to say. He was on Hardly Initiated. All right, so let's hear it.
So it doesn't, we get embarrassed sometimes when people talk about how marriages work, and it really isn't for us.
Well, they say it's hard.
Yeah.
It's not really hard work for us. So we kind of feel weird, like, when people bring that up, because it's not a lot of work for us, because we're just best friends, living together, living our lives, living our dreams, working together. And so when people are like, yeah, marriage is hard work, it's this and that, you got to put time into it. And we're kind of like,
yeah, it's
not for us. And we're blessed, I think, because of that. You know what I mean?
Because, like, one of the things is, like, I have more fun with her than any of my male friends ever. We have a ball. It's like it's always a damn sitcom. And when you got that kind of thing, you don't keep, ego doesn't come into play, all that other kind of stuff. You don't ever look at things, willful.
All right, so let's see. Let's get back here. All right, so I listened to their message on Hardly Initiated. I will try to tag them. Hardly Initiated. It's a group of two guys on the podcast on YouTube. They're creating some really nice content over there. So when I heard this, I was like, we're in such an environment where people have a hard time believing this. They actually have a hard time believing that marriage doesn't have to be hard. Their message is actually very, very simple, and I resonate heavily with their message because that's actually my personal experience. I don't see marriage I've never really seen marriage as very hard. Okay. In my book, you will see tons of stories in Get My Marriage Back. You can go to getmymarriageback.com or manofprestige.com and get this for free. The experience that we shared there, which is, we shared our story, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of that in the book, right? But you will see part of the story where I told that I've never really felt like marriage was hard work for me. The communication breakdown that my wife and I went through is both of our faults, of course. You cannot blame that on one person, because if you are such a good communicator and the other person is not able to hear you, clearly your communication skills is not up there. All right, I know you are ready to throw pointing finger at the other person, right? I know that's what you would rather do, like it's just their fault. They're just terrible at communicator and you are the best communicator in the world. Yeah, right. Stop the cap. Okay, you're clearly terrible at...
Stop the cap.
If you're good at communicator, you can make anybody... This is a skill set that you have to learn. You can make anybody listen to you. Okay, and then eventually you can even do such a great job, you get them to learn how to communicate, and then marriage doesn't have to be that hard. Okay, so if you listen to what they're saying here, let me analyze their words exactly.
So it doesn't, we get embarrassed sometimes when people talk about how marriages work.
He said we get embarrassed. Now it's a second marriage, so he's gone through his own fair share. Obviously, he's a divorcee. She was a divorcee, right? They feel embarrassed because they don't have that experience. And the point there is that it's not to shame you if you're having not such a good experience. That's not the point. The point there is that it doesn't have to be hard. Everyone else that you're listening to on the social media are telling you that marriage is hard, it's difficult, it's work. While that is true within certain context, right? Like anything else that's worthwhile in life is work, duh, right? But they also paint a picture like marriage is just the one thing outside of the rest of the world that's just hard. No, just like life is hard, yes, marriage requires work and it requires effort and skill set. But it doesn't have to be hard. You can literally have a good time. And we have people, whenever they hear this kind of stuff, they can't wait to say, if it is true, right? They can't wait to say, we don't know, they might just be capping, right? Things along that line.
Stop the cap.
Yeah, I understand. I get it. Okay, I get it. But that's usually from a personal standpoint of rejection, which is normal, right? But if you feel that way, anytime you see this kind of news, and the first thing that comes to your mind is that could they be telling the truth? That's something you have to check, because you're going to attract what you fear the most always. Okay, energy follows attention. So wherever you put your attention, either in the form of ideology, that's where all your energy, you will give it energy. You will feed that beast.
And it really isn't for us.
Well, they say it's hard.
Yeah.
And then she said they say it's hard, and she's like,
It's not really hard work for us.
It's not really. I mean, it doesn't mean they don't have disagreement. It's just that they see it as, they see it as, even if there's anything that seems hard, it's just a feeling of a moment, like Charly Boy said, right? It's just a feeling. Once you recognize it's a feeling, then you're able to like, okay, let me take some time off. Let me go and drink some water. Let me read a book. Let me talk to someone. By the time I'm going through just 30 seconds of everything I've just said, I'm already starting to feel better. It's a feeling. And these are majority of the issues that end people up in divorce. No, it's not just because somebody buys somebody that end people in divorce. It's not just DV. It's not just cheating. The typical that makes the news all the time. A lot of times it's communication breakdown. Sometimes you blame it on finance. That is still communication breakdown. And beyond communication breakdown is essentially you lack game. You don't have the skill. You don't have the skill. So I wanted to cover that really quick. Let me see.
So we kind of feel weird like when people bring that up, because it's not a lot of work for us, because we're just best friends living together.
It's not a lot of work for them. They are just best friends, right? When I first started this channel, I've had a few people say, I don't want to be friends with my spouse, because they're coming from a place where they thought that person was friends and they felt betrayed, and now they think the magic formula is to not be friends. I mean, look at this comment here. This was some of the comments in the chat on that video. After they were talking, you can see somebody actually say, I honestly think, let me blow that up so you can see. This is how the average might think right now today, because they're consuming negative content. It's just bad news everywhere. So that's how they see relationships and marriage. So I honestly think he likes her more than she likes him. What? How did we get here? I'm confused. At that point, I was just watching. At that point, I was like, damn, Nikki. Like, Jesus, that's all you can pull out of this. Oh, sorry. I didn't show that. Let me show you what I was showing. This is what I was showing. This person said, I honestly think he likes her more than she likes him. Really? That's what you see in this picture, in this video? That's a personal problem that needs to be checked. I'm not talking about Nikki in particular, just anybody. This is your outlook whenever you see this kind of news. That's personal. You gotta check that. The very minimum, you should be able to celebrate what you're looking at in that moment in time, right? I was like, damn, Nikki, because she wasn't this person. I don't know if it's a she or he. I don't want to assume that's a he or she, but that wasn't the only person that was like a little bit like they're having a hard time believing that someone can actually enjoy their life instead of marriage, But there you have it. Those are two good examples I just gave you. Charly Boy, people that don't have unnecessary, unhealthy attachment to ideologies, they tend to enjoy relationships more. That's the lesson. Okay. Intentionality, I always tell you, make sure you're backing your intentionality with emotional intelligence. All right. If you are a religious person, you can still be a religious person, but you need to understand that the nature of religion itself is an attachment to ideologies, and you need to make sure that you are continue to, if you're a Christian, study your Bible. Take the time to study your Bible, because there are nuances that you need to understand beyond just the words that's staring at you in your face. I'm telling you, okay? And then when you get to application in real life, it's another ball game, and you have to learn from experience and feedback. In this case, from your partner. Active listening. It's a skill set that is not necessarily taught. It's never really taught by parents, and not by obviously the loudest people on this media spaces. Okay? I'll just keep that at the back of your mind. But anyway, let me know what your thoughts are. If you pick something out, put it in the comment. Let me know what you picked out of this, okay? And hit the like button, share, subscribe, turn up your notifications so you're notified whenever we go live. And I will be back in 20 seconds.
It's your love that I've been missing. I miss all your hugs, your touching and kissing. Make love on the floor, the couch in the kitchen. One love enough, we done enough.